here in China. And once the relationship is harmed or broken down, there will be very, very little you can do about making it up, mending the relationship, or doing anything successfully in this country. So relationship is important, so you need to know the appropriate way to handle conflicts here.
Between the Chinese and the foreigners is that both parties really have different cultural background and understanding of business etiquette and business law. So it's really it would be surprising if there isn't some kind of conflict.
So conflicts should be expected.
Yeah. I mean, they can be big and small, but I guess to be successful in China, you should focus on trying to minimize conflict.
So what are the best ways or the possible ways we can minimize conflicts rather than really increase them?
If I hire people into our corporation, we try to get them to understand our corporate culture, what do we focus on, and more of how a U.S. corporation operate. But at the same time, get the Chinese staff to understand this situation. As a business executive, I feel that we also need to understand, the background of the Chinese staff.
The strategies we can use in managing conflicts. So if you do have a conflict and you do want to bring it up with a person, what do? Try to avoid talking about the conflict or dealing with the conflict in public. If you do have a conflict with a person, try to talk through the issue in a private situation and behind other people. Avoid doing this in front of everybody else.
School, everything you do, you need to look at the proper time, proper place, proper way. In China, is that I would say you don't want to do a direct criticism like in the U.S. in a meeting or a boardroom environment. But if it's more, serious criticism, then bring the Chinese staff on a one-to-one basis away from the other staff, right? Saving face, and basically talk about, look, this is a criticism about the work, not the person, and then and put it also in a Chinese context that that shows that you still put a lot of emphasis on the staff, his performance and so forth, his aspirations, but you like him to change the way he does certain things.
Another strategy we should really learn is try to understand the verbal and the non-verbal indications of the existence of a conflict between you and the other party. So very often, even though when Chinese people are not accustomed to expressing any conflicts openly, there will be indications in the way their facial expressions say or in the way their voice is used. So try to be sensitive, tuned towards the subtle expressions of any conflicts between you and the other party. The least thing we can do here is actually by asking, is it really the way you want? Even though you hear a yes, there might be a no. So try to double check if whatever you do, whatever you say is accepted willingly or it is only accepted out of politeness. So that's a very preventive method you can take in stopping any conflicts before it goes ahead. I had a client, a CEO for a joint venture company here, and this client comes from the Western culture. She came to me the other day asking me to solve this puzzle. He said, Hua, now tell me why. I had a person who had been working with me for quite a number of years, and I trusted him. At least I thought we were getting on well. And even the day before yesterday, or on Friday, I was talking with him about the next quarter's plan, business plan, and he sat there patiently going through the discussion with me. However, on the following Monday, when I came into the office, I saw his resignation letter lying on my desk. So what's happening here? This time, only a few days ago, we were talking about next quarter's plan, and now I had a resignation letter, and there was no sign of any conflicts between me and that Chinese colleague. And this friend of mine from the Western cultural background was puzzled. And he was puzzled like many other people here operating in China. So, the cultural warning I wanted to send out here is Chinese people are not always direct in the way they express any conflicts, and they are not always confrontational. Very seldom they want to be confrontational in front of a conflict or in the way they handle conflict. Now what do? Strategies, learn the cultural signs or the cultural signals of reading a potential conflict, of reading the existence of a conflict. So learn to diagnose conflicts in a culturally sensitive way. Another way, try to avoid confrontational sort of ways of dealing with conflicts. Instead, using the subtle, indirect way.
Be culturally sensitive to the staffs, because at the end of the day, you have picked the staff to join your corporation. You do see the strength what the staff can bring, and it may be just a matter of that better understanding of the staff on what your expectation and what the corporate policy is.
If nothing can help, I advise you to use the third party or kind of intermediary person to come in and take care of the conflicts for both sides. So using the third person in resolving a conflict is another strategy you can consider when you really need to get a conflict taken care of. All right, again, my conclusion, learn the specific cultural ways or specific cultural strategies in dealing with conflicts with the Chinese people. And try to remember conflicts are expressed differently here in this culture and in this land. In general, try to avoid open, confrontational expressions of conflicts. I'm sure if you learn a little bit of the cultural backgrounds behind the conflict handling here in China, if you learn even a few expressions in Chinese, how to handle or express conflicts, you will have a much easier time when it gets to a conflict. I'm not guaranteeing here by doing all this you won't have conflicts. Again, conflicts are everywhere. In America, in Europe, and in here. And conflicts can be even more easily happening or occur when it is a cross-cultural situation. Yet, nothing to fear. Be prepared. I'm sure you will win. Hello. Welcome back with me again on this Chinese Business Culture series. Now we are coming to a new topic, and today we are going to concentrate on how to make and receive compliments in China.
The types of compliments that I see in the workplace are related to someone doing some type of work or finishing something. But I don't typically hear anyone say, wow, nice haircut, or that dress looks great on you, or a personal type of compliment. I see something that's more related to what they're doing on the job.
Oh, so the compliments so far you've got from your Chinese colleagues are mostly focused on how well you do at work.
Yes,
so the
it's on what you
achievement
do.
related.
Yes.
Wow. So I hope you're not depressed, not hearing any other compliments you may are used to when you're back in your own country.
No, I think it's you enjoy the people for what they are. And
Exactly.
I think if you want to give a compliment, if you give it sincerely, then they'll typically accept it.
In China, I think people tend not to compliment that much on each other's appearances, especially across genders. So you do not come up to a girl and, as a man saying, oh, you look beautiful today. I think that may send some nervous feelings to that girl and make the atmosphere a little bit tense. However, I think we have a lot of other topics here for you. You won't be stuck. In China, people, I think as a foreigner or as someone coming from another culture, I'm sure you'll be popular to compliment on the country, on the culture, on the land. And if you come to a particular part of China, a region or a town, I think it will be very safe for you to comment or compliment about the town, the village, or the city. So people in China tend to be very proud of the city they come from and very proud of the birthplace of them. So I think these are the common topics people do like to pay compliment about. Of course, apart from all these big topics, people also use some other topics too when they compliment each other. I think you can concentrate when you compliment on a person's career achievement, like how well he or she has done in his or her profession, and also commenting on one's academic achievement also is safe here in China. There are a number of other topics you can think of when you want to make a compliment. For example, children. This is a big topic for compliments in China. And in China, I think people do pay great attention to their children's education. So comment on the achievement of their children's progress in their school, in their skill learning, I think is another area you can think of when you want to compliment. I think with older people here in China, health is a topic you can think of when you compliment. When you see a person who is in his 60s or 70s, try to say, you look really healthy and strong at this age. I think that's another thing people do, which we do not quite often think of in the West.
For example, I don't know if it's a compliment or not.
All right.
Sometimes maybe the Chinese people mean this as a compliment. They'll say to our girls, "Oh, you're cute." You know,
That's a
你是可以.
compliment.
But it's done in such a way that it kind of bothers the girls, or they'll touch their hair a lot. So
While they're saying
saying, yeah, you're cute. So I think it's just that connection with maybe trying to connect with the girls that they like. They really enjoy children and like children, and so they get a lot of compliments, and usually it's, oh, she's so cute, or
yeah, it is a compliment, I guess. I mean, in the Chinese cultural background or the Chinese cultural situation, I think the Chinese people are shy or are not so accustomed to giving compliments so freely. I think this is a very good chance once you have a child around in a group to compliment the child. I mean, to touch the child's head, really to soften the atmosphere, to break the ice, and then get on or get the conversation going here.
Right.
So
and for a Western child, this can be a rude experience.
Unreal, I love
I
that
remember.
word.
And the other thing is, in Western society, or at least in the U.S., a lot of times, you teach your kids to stay away from strangers. But here in China, a lot of times people will just come up to your kids. They want to be friendly. They want to be able to touch or to ask or put their face in your child's face. So it's very different than what you see in a Western society.
So we can see that people do behave quite differently.
Oh, yes.
And once we come across situations, even including this compliment making, there are some aspects we have to be prepared for,
Yes.
even if we don't really need to like it. But being prepared really can prevent us from judging it in a very in the wrong way, and we can take it in a more light-hearted way. But when you receive a compliment, what's the way to respond or react to a compliment then? In China, traditionally speaking, people do not take a compliment simply by saying, oh, thank you, 谢谢. Instead, remember, China is a place the culture really makes people to express their modesty rather than this ready acceptance of compliments. So traditionally speaking, when a person gets a compliment, they would say, "Oh, 哪里哪里." 哪里哪里 means no, not at all. No, I'm not like that. So a kind of denying of a compliment, a refusal of acknowledging a compliment is quite a habit among the Chinese people when they are given a compliment. So once you give a compliment, you hear this 哪里哪里. Oh, no, no, no. Do not be shocked. This is just a way or expression of modesty in this culture. Another way I think we really should remember is that in China, when people get a compliment, very often they feel a little bit uneasy. So instead of saying thank you, they may give you an explanation. For example, if you say, "Wow, this is a very beautiful hairstyle you have today," you may very often hear them explaining, "Oh, you like it? Actually, I got this haircut in a neighborhood hairdresser's place," and you hear an explanation. So this explanation is the way, I think, to really to cover their embarrassment, or it's just a way for them to show their way of accepting a compliment in a culturally appropriate way. Great. I think people are changing, the culture is changing. I still remember about 25 years ago, when I was receiving my first compliment from my English friends, the reaction I had, one of the guys said, "Oh, you look good, Hua." No. You don't see that anymore here, do you, Paul?
I don't see those types of compliments being given typically.
Oh, okay.
So
I think that's another reason.
It's not about the person that you give compliments to typically that I see.
Okay. Typically, you don't hear people commenting about the appearance of each other. Yeah, I think another point we are really hitting on here is it seems that in the workplace, the culture is also changing and transforming. People are getting more and more used to compliment giving and compliment sort of taking.
Part of it can be reflected in the type of person that's leading the group. For example, as a leader or manager in my group, because this is the way I am, then I see other people willing to be more expressive in appreciation.
Wow,
where other managers that are coming from Chinese background, I hear through the grapevine that their people don't have the same experience.
Remember, compliment making and receiving is very popular in China too. But at the same time, the topics people tend to compliment about are different from culture to culture. So be culturally appropriate and sensitive when you do give a compliment or receive a compliment. This brings us to the end of this session, and I will see you next time. Thank you, and bye-bye. Hello. Welcome back with me for this Chinese business culture series. And today, we are going to focus on how to receive and express disagreements or complaints in China. So talking about hierarchy, I would like to mention that in China, normally people withhold their criticism if he or she is in a junior position. Therefore, the criticism from the junior people to the senior people are mostly avoided. Another factor is the age factor. And again, because of the tradition and culture here, and people hesitate a lot if it comes to a situation, the person much younger in age comes to criticize the person who is much older in age. So again, in this situation, criticism is very much withheld. Now, the next factor that really influences the way people disagree or express disagreement to each other is the principle of harmony. As we all know, in China, relationship counts a lot in business. And open criticism is a very much avoided phenomenon when you really want to preserve and build a kind of harmonious relationship. So, harmony and hierarchy are the factors we need to understand and we need to remember when it comes to criticism.
I think there are two kinds of ways to get and disagree with someone. With someone who's your peer, I find people are a lot more open to disagree.
Okay, as peer, as colleague,
As a peer,
same
probably,
level.
yeah, same level. people will disagree, and I think this is true to a certain extent in the West as well. But some people in the West also maybe try to disagree in a polite way. Or a more tactful way. Sometimes people can be a little bit direct here, which I think is actually very valuable in business. To be able to express directly